So what exactly is a political party? It's just a group of people and their main job is to get elected into office. That is their main job. And there's three parts of the party. There's the party and the electorate. That's the biggest group of people. So if you're looking at the Democrats, for instance, the party and the electorate are the Democrats who are the voters. The party as an organization is like when we see the local Democratic headquarters, the Illinois Democratic Committee, the National Democratic Committee, that's the organization trying to get people to get elected. And then, of course, the party and government are the actual politicians that are in government from that party. For instance, the Democrats now have Barack Obama in office, Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, people like that would be the party and government for the Democrats. The political party is another example of a linkage institution like we've seen a lot with this unit. Again, a linkage institution is a channel that connects people's views and turns them into political issues that the government can put on policy agenda. It's a thing that connects the people and the government and gets their ideas through it. And political parties are some of those linkage institutions. So that's one of their tasks. Another task that they do is that they have to pick party candidates. They run the political campaigns for those candidates. They give cues to voters. It's like, hey guys, here's what we do, so get out there and go vote for us. They articulate policies. If we don't understand them, they get out there and explain them in the point of view of whatever party you're for. And they coordinate policy making. So like they take policy and coordinate it into what they would want for their beliefs. When it comes to elections and political parties, we are going to look at two different models that explain how voters vote for who they do and how they get involved in political parties. The first of that is being the rational choice theory, which is the idea that assumes individuals act on their own best interests, and that's how they choose who they want to vote for. So obviously, the rational choice theory says that the wisest party is going to go after the broadest group of people and what they personally want. The Downs model says that voters maximize their chance that their policies are going to get put into effect when they get into the people they vote for get into government. So of course parties want to win elective office. That's their number one goal. So they're hoping that whichever party seems to be the winner will get those policies put through. Here's the Downs model, and it shows basically how voters vote. In 2004, this was a national election study done where it asked people on a scale of 1 to 7, 1 being extreme liberal, 7 being extreme conservative, where they feel that they would lie. If you're looking, and we've known this for a very long time, as you know, most people, the plurality of people consider themselves to be moderate, and then it kind of bells out from there, just like pretty much any type of bell curve. If you look on the left-hand side, you're seeing the mean perception of the Democratic Party, mean average, and then, of course, the average of the Republican Party on the right. And as you can see, they're pretty much, on average, slightly liberal or slightly conservative, so they don't really skew too far from the center. As I mentioned previously, there's three parts to a political party. There's the party of the electorate, the one in organization, the one in government. I'm going to look at the party and the electorate first, the voters. When it comes to the party of the electorate, they are trying to look to the party image, which is just their perception of what Republicans or what Democrats stand for. Whichever party image they like better is the side they're going to choose. When it comes to party identification, you don't have to like sign up anywhere. You don't have to like get a formal membership. It's just whatever you claim you are is what you are. And you know, your basic major three choices would be Democrat, Republican, or Independent, which the plurality of people consider themselves today. A common type of voting style today is known as ticket splitting, where when you go to a polling place and you write on a ballot, you choose one party for one office, but then choose a different party for another. It's most predominantly done by independents in elections, which most, as we know, that's the biggest group of people when it comes to party identification today. So no state or race is really safe because of ticket splitting. This graph shows you party identification from 1952 all the way to 2008. And you could see the movement of both the Democrat, the Republicans going down a little bit. Republican is somewhat staying steady, but it did go down. And the rise that we're seeing in the chart is really with the independents. So like I've said to you before, it was the rise of the independents was at the cost of the Democrats. And if you look at it like that, you can see that in the graph. The next part of the political parties we're going to be focusing on is the party organizations. And we're going to start from the grassroots level and work our way up to Washington. There's three major levels of the party organization. The first type is the local parties. And here's when we see the infamous party machines, where it's a type of political party organization that really relies on heavy material inducements, which is just bribes, to win votes and to govern. When it comes to political machines, usually we're seeing a lot of patronage, the spoil system, as Andrew McFluffy Jackson coined it, where you're giving a job or a contract based on supporters or your friends, not based on merit. But due to progressive reforms in the early 1900s, we're seeing the party machine has pretty much died out, and it's just more of the revivalism of the party organization at the county levels, more so than at the city levels. The next group we're going to look at are the state party systems. And with the state party systems, they are really the most powerful groups that we're going to see out of the three. In the state party systems, they're also the ones that decide on what type of primary should be done per state. And the three types are this. Number one, there's a closed primary where only people that have registered with that party can vote on that party's ballot for those party candidates. The open primaries, which is the most common, which is what Illinois has, is that the voters can decide on election day whether they want to vote on a Democratic ballot or on a Republican ballot. The blanket one is where the voters are presented with both sides, with all candidates for all parties. And like I said, the states are the most powerful ones. Why? Because over time they have learned to organize themselves better and they've gotten bigger budgets over time, which has made them more powerful. And since they are so frequently involved in elections, that makes them even more powerful than the national headquarters. The third group we're looking at out of the three parts of the party is the national level, the National Party Organization. And we see them meet every 4 years at the National Convention, where they pick not only which candidate they want to be their choice for President of the United States, to run for the President of the United States, but they also reform their party platform. Who does that? That's the National Committee, which is one of the institutions that keeps the party operating between those 4-year conventions. And who's in charge of that? They call them the national chairperson. They're the ones that takes care of the day-to-day activities of the party. The third major part of the political party is the party in government. That's the actual party members that are actually elected to the government. Whichever party controls the government are the ones that have the policy consequences. Now, what that basically means is this. They are the ones that get to create and push forward with the policy, and if it's good, great, they get the good consequences from that, but of course they can always get negative consequences if things don't turn out too well when they endorse and create this policy. What are the types of people that get them into office? Or coalitions. Parties depend on them to get elected, and it's just a group of individuals that have some type of common interest upon which these political party depends. You know, we see, for instance, the New Deal Coalition, they all were backers of my favorite worst president in the world, FDR, and that would be like African Americans, Hispanics, poor people, and Catholics and Jews were some example of the New Deal Coalition. Parties and politicians generally act on their campaign promises, but it's sometimes hard to. If you get elected and you're a part of a divided government, like we see with Barack Obama right now, and when he got reelected in 2012, and he's going to have a Republican House, it's going to be a really hard time getting things enacted. Here's some examples of what parties create when they're actually at the national conventions. In 2008, these are the party platforms created by the Republicans and Democrats in just a few areas. You have the war in Iraq, abortion, and taxes. You know, the Republicans, they basically say we need to be there. We need to make sure that those who have sacrificed so much, that we're committed to making sure that we meet our goals, where basically the Democrats are like, we have a new mission, we're going to end this war and get out of there as quick as we can. Abortion, they're saying we are adherent in protecting the sanctity of all human life, and the Democrats say that they support Roe versus Wade. And then taxes, no new tax hikes for the Republicans, where the Democrats said we want to cut corporate loopholes and stop allowing any type of tax breaks for the super rich or for corporations. We have not always had Democrats and Republicans. Parties have changed over time. We have had many different party eras. And what exactly is a party era? It's a historical period in which a majority of the votes go towards one party. And like I said, we have 5. We're going to talk about them in a little bit. Now, we've had changes over time of the parties. Why? Because of things like critical elections, where it's just an election that's seen as an earthquake. It like shook the party, and all of a sudden they're focusing on newer issues, and new coalitions are emerging. And when this happens, this is known as party realignment, where it's just basically a displacement of the majority party. They become the minority party, and it happens during a critical election, and all of a sudden they have to change what they believe in. All right, the first party era we ever had was known as the first party system. Very original and very creative. And it was from 1796 when Washington got elected until 1824, which was the end of James Monroe's term. And Madison was afraid that we were going to have factions, but he realized that liberty is to faction as air is to fire. You got to have it that feeds into it and gives us liberty. So they did have the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans. Those were the two groups. Those were the two political parties in the first party system. But the Federalists were the ones that like really ruled for a little bit, and then it switched over to the Democratic Republicans for the last 3 of the 5 presidents during that period. The next one is 1826 to 1856, where it's Jacksonian democracy. We're seeing the modern party, the Democrats, founded by Andrew McFuffy Jackson, and we're also seeing another party emerge known as the Whigs. And what was the Whigs' #1 platform? Just, we hate Jackson. We don't like him. Whatever he's for, we're against. And that's what they used. Eras 3 and 4 are coming up next. The first one, number 3, would be the era of 2 Republican eras, where we're seeing this from 1860 to 1928. We're seeing a big wave of Republicans. We see a few here and there. Democrats, we get Grover Cleveland, we get Woodrow Wilson, but it's mostly Republicans. How did the Republicans rise to power? This is 1860s when we start seeing the second of the 2 major political parties we see today. Well, it was based on anti-slavery, abolitionism, free soil. They didn't want slavery to be in the expanded westward territories. The second wave came with the 1896 presidential election, had the greatest turnout in American history at 80%. It was centered completely around industrialization and the gold standard, and if you've ever seen The Wizard of Oz, it's completely based on that election. And that's what led to the second of the 2 eras, was the 1896 election when William McKinley, who was a Republican, got elected. 1932 to 1964, this is the 4th party era, known as the New Deal Coalition, my favorite time period in history. I love learning about what a wonderful president FDR was. He created the New Deal Coalition, and with this, he got a brand new group of people supporting the Democrats. It consisted of urban working class, ethnic groups, Catholics, Jews, poor, and Southerners. And Southerners are going to stay supporting of the Democrats from Reconstruction, all the way up through Vietnam. This chart is actually in your book. It gives you an idea of what the coalitions are like today and which side that they typically support, blue obviously being Democrat and red obviously being Republican. For the most part, if you're looking, you're like, holy cow, the Democrats have a lot of support. But, you know, you can look at this on your own, but just in general, white, male, Protestants that are older tend to support Republicans, and minorities, women, and lower income people tend to support Democrats. 5th and final party era is the era we're in today, where we're seeing the realignment of the South and the era of divided government. Well, divided government is this. We've learned this a bazillion million times. The 3 major groups that have anything to do with legislation, the House, the Senate, and of course the presidency. One of those 3 is different from the other 2. That's divided government. Why is there divided government? Couple of reasons. Number 1, there's major changes with party de-alignment where people are disengaging from certain parties. They're becoming more independent and less Democrat or Republican, especially less Democrat. There's also party neutrality where people are just kind of like, they have that burning indifference towards the 2 parties. They just don't care anymore. If you look at this map, you're going to see that even states are having situations with divided government where their legislative branch and their executive branch are 2 different political parties. Any state on this map that is purple has that divided government. Obviously, we can't classify Nebraska because they have a unicameral legislature. But there are, majority of ones still standing are like the blues, which is, Democrats more so than the Republican states. But you're seeing a huge amount of states do have divided government at their state level. Third party, who cares, right? Oh, we need to care? Oh, shoot. All right, I guess I should probably tell you about them anyway. Third parties are just basically the minor parties. They're the ones that are left over that aren't Democrats and aren't Republicans. They rarely win. If they ever win, it's because they have some big name, not because of the party and their actual beliefs. But they're important. They are safety valves for popular discontent. If we're upset about something, we don't like the Democrats, we don't like the Republicans, we can join a third party if we want. We won't get anything done. But at least we can feel better about ourselves. All right, they also bring new ideas and groups into politics that maybe like the Democrats and the Republicans can pick little bits and pieces, like basically monkeys off of each other's heads. But people are starting to kind of like them a little bit better because our two-party system promotes ambiguity. At least they have a third party that actually has something really specific when it comes to beliefs. We are the only weirdos in the world of democracy that actually have a two-party system. Everyone else in the world has multi-party systems. So how do they deal with it? Well, there's different ways of dealing with it. Some places like England, like the United Kingdom, actually has the winner-take-all system like we do, where basically legislative seats are awarded to whoever gets first place. There are other places, like for instance in Germany and the European Union, where we see proportional representation, where we do that divided. You don't vote for a person, you vote for a party. And then once we see those percentages, the legislative seats are awarded based on the votes received by that party. So because there's more percentage-wise, third parties can actually have a better chance of getting in certain locations. Russia does this too. But when you have that, when you have lots of different parties, you're going to see pluralities. You're not going to see a majority party in charge. So what happens is these places create coalition governments where two or more parties form a majority together in the national legislature so they can have some type of majority. When actually looking at what a political party should do, how they should be responsible, we're going to focus on the responsible party model. This is what they should actually be doing while they're in office. Number one, parties should have distinct, comprehensible programs. They need to have a clear alternative to the other side and not be ambiguous like we see with our two major parties today. Candidates have to be committed to this program. They can't hem and haw and be like, nah, I kind of like it, but this other side, I gotta go, and like pretend like they don't support something because they want to get the most amount of votes that they can. They have to be clear cut and back it up. And when they get into office, the majority party has to carry out their system. Here's our plans. We got to carry them out and actually get it done. And if it doesn't work, they got to take responsibility for it. Be like, yep, we screwed up. Maybe we should change it and we'll fix it. I promise we'll get things done. But we don't do this in America. But all they worry about when we're looking at things is getting elected. And getting elected goes along with the rational choice theory. People are indifferent. They don't really care. So who can we just grab as many people as we can by being ambiguous? Well, there's no discipline. We talked about this too in class the other day when I was saying how, like, with teachers and parents, it's like, what can I do to get people on my side? I know, rational choice theory, I'll just be nice to you guys and let you do what you want. But there's no discipline to that. You got to have the responsible, clear-cut line and goals for what needs to be done. Yeah, it might not be fun, but it's the right way to do things. All right, think about this when it comes to the scope of government and whether or not American political parties help the government grow bigger or smaller. Let's think about 2012, right at the end of the year, with Cliff-pocalypse and Mageddon-cost, where we don't know if we're going to fall off the fiscal cliff or not, and the Republicans and Democrats are not working with each other because there's no uniformity. The government doesn't get things done, and in some cases they stay small, like in 1994 when universal health care wasn't passed. That failed because the Republicans and Democrats couldn't agree on it. At the same time, when they can't agree on things, things can't get cut or taken away either, like, I don't know, entitlement programs. We're having some trouble with that as well, and it basically makes things difficult, political party, to also shrink the size of the government. Is the modern day political party over? No, I mean, it's just diminished. That's pretty much what it is. Where do we get the most of our information? Not from political parties, but the media. That's where we get the majority of our information. That is our biggest linkage institution to the government, not the political party like it used to be. But they're still important. They do have visibility. They are very active. And most people do identify themselves with a political party. Now you're like, now wait a minute. You told us that the majority of people, or the plurality of people, were Independents, yes, but if you add up the number of Democrats plus the number of Republicans, you're going to see that that group is the majority of Americans. All right, my little bowlfuls of jelly, what is the moral of the story? Number one, political parties are pervasive, meaning they are omnipresent. They're always encompassing. They're always around, whether they're the party of the electorate, the party organization, or the party in government. Number two, we have a two-party system. We're the only weirdos in the world that run a democracy that have a two-party system. Everybody else is a multi-party system, and that's how we've always been. And the decentralized nature of political parties makes change really hard because there's not really one side running the show to get things done, whether it's for the good or the bad. Since there's so much divided government, super hard to get things done because no one really sees political parties as important as they used to be. So that's it. Thorson Horch.